Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with another test disc for our videos Shawscope Volume 4 box set coming out in December of 2025. Making my way through rapidly this collection leading up to the release date of this box set through Shaw Brothers' massive vault of weird and wonderful spooky films, exploitation films, sleazy 70s films, sci-fi, horror, practical effects, visual effects, all that galore in this massive collection edition. And the results have been quite mixed so far as I get into these movies. Some I've seen previously, some for the very first time. Some have had previous 88 film releases from their original library, but the license has run out and 88 have acquired it and put it into a massive box set, which is great value for people that have never picked up the editions, being the fact that a lot of them are long out of print. And these are brand new 2K restorations with some new special features on some of the discs through this collection. And we're currently at disc 5 now in terms of the edition, and you're probably wondering to yourself quite rightly, what happened to disc 4, Andrew? Which is Hex and Bewitched, which is a double bill kind of disc. Previously have reviewed this on the channel already alongside the Box's Omen on the Volume 2 set, which I did a sort of a trilogy review from the same director. In fact, he did all 3 films, and I did it a couple of years ago. And I did look back on that previous review, and I'm pretty happy with my comments and thoughts on those films on that initial video. And I thought to myself, being the fact this is quite an extensive collection of films, instead of me talking about films that I've already talked about already, with like Black Magic 1 and 2, being the fact I saw the first one, not the second, with Hex and Bewitched, I've got a pretty fresh memory. My opinions haven't altered. I think both are great films. They're really fun by a great director who actually some of the more better films in terms of this kind of collection, being the fact that Hex is based on a original French movie, which I have watched, and Bewitched is actually pretty good. It actually paves the way to kind of Box's Omen, which ended up being basically a much stronger, much more bombastic, crazier movie. Both of these films are really good, and I highly recommend them. There isn't really much to else to discuss on them in terms of special features. The new 2K restorations are great. If you want to know my thoughts and impressions on these 2 films and Box's Omen from the Volume 2 set, I will put a link in the description below. I believe it'd be best to focus on the newer films and ones that I haven't seen fresh for the channel, and to get through the collection a bit more thoroughly. Now, with that being said, I actually do wish I watched Hex and Bewitched after watching these 2 films, which is the 2 loose sequels from the same director, if you can believe it, from the initial Hex, Bewitched, and Box's Omen. He was contracted, blackmailed, forced, I don't know what happened. He made both of these 2 loose sequels to the Hex franchise, question mark, even though Hex has nothing to do with these 2 films, probably by name only. It's similar to kind of Black Magic 1 and 2, have nothing to do with each other, probably just cashing in on the idea and the concepts of the Hex and the kind of the spooky kind of nature, supernatural stuff, more than a direct sequel to those films. And we have Hex versus Witchcraft, which is the first one, and then Hex After Hex, which is set 2 years after, so 1980, which is the same year, I believe, as the first X film, and then 1982, which is X versus X After. Wow. I don't even know where to begin with these. As mentioned, Hex versus Witchcraft, released in 1980, the same year as the first X film, which I believe was just a complete go, very similar to Black Magic 1 and 2. Hey, we really liked your interpretation of that original French movie, doing that same kind of idea in terms of a period piece, spooky, suspenseful, good pacing, and pretty wild kind of ending as well. Can you do that, but in contemporary 70s with a complete fucking idiot character and have nothing to do with the original? We'll have a sort of spooky kind of idea where the character, this complete loser character, this gambler, basically marries a ghost, gets offered to marry a ghost, and gets money, gets an apartment, and shenanigans happen. You know, how would you like to direct that? You know, and I like to think it was a lot of money. I like to think it was, or maybe it was, I will do 1 for you or 2 for you if I can do my Box's Omen, which I'm hoping that is the reason for. I will look into this a little bit more. And as you probably realize as well, I haven't talked about any special features because there aren't any. Usually with these test discs, I would do special features in terms of audio commentary. There is one Mandarin kind of voiceover clips, I believe, on the first disc, and nothing for the second, and there's no audio commentaries. So nobody in the entire Hong Kong community had access to these films prior to this release. No one had any way of discussing it or any kind of deep dives or knowledge. Nobody. And that is crazy to me. And I'm very curious to see what the written essays would be on the box set. These are really baffling films to me, and I'm going to be quite blunt in how I feel and try and be constructive at the same time. The fact that nobody talked about this in terms of an audio commentary, there's no extras, apart from just, again, the Mandarin voiceover, is really telling of these films. It's very hard to talk about them in a very positive light, and to even get through them is another chore by themselves, and even I struggled in terms of both these entries. The first movie, very simply, is just a complete loser gambler character, which Hong Kong likes gambling comedies during that decade, during the 80s, and the first 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, is just this loser character that's sold everything in his house, who gets himself in a lot of debt, and then basically has to kind of give up his wife to a gambler, I don't know, triad boss, I believe, gangster character, and it goes wrong in terms of setting his wife up as basically sleeping with this person to wipe his debt. It goes completely wrong. She leaves him, of course, and basically he threatens him, saying, "You're going to need to kill yourself in 24 hours. This ends in hilarity and ensue. And then basically he gets an offer to basically, hey, you found this duffel bag which has this lot of jewels and has this kind of like, you know, tablet type thing, this kind of spiritual tablet. And basically this old man comes to him with an offer saying, I want you to marry the ghost of my daughter, which has been violently killed and raped and dismembered. Pretty graphic, and sort of played off for sort of like laugh and jokes a little bit in a weird way. You get money and an access to a house, but you have to remain faithful to this woman. Well, this ghost. The ghost doesn't turn up for quite some time. There's alluded to it, and we don't know if it's actually real or not. He takes the offer because he's desperate and he has no choice. And he basically uses the apartment and the wealth to go and do what he wants to do. And the ghost starts to appear here and there by possessing certain bodies. And it gets very confusing. It gets very weird. And it's, you know, she keeps channeling different bodies. And there's certain scenarios where he basically gets conned, or very much in the style of Mr. Vampire in some occasions, but on one occasion was a pretty elaborate, pretty high budget con in terms of one sequence, which is really weird. And yeah, eventually he, you know, has communication with this ghost woman and possesses the stewardess or the neighbor next door, the hooker. It's not very clear. And basically that's the woman love interest he has. Leads into a very baffling, what is this film sequence, which goes on for quite some time. Yeah, I was going to show it.
原來想招你真啊，咁就唔怕慢慢嚟咯喂。
Fuck am I watching? I'm pretty baffled by this point. I don't really know who this film is for. Is this film for like 9-year-olds or something? Well, clearly not, because this is an 18 rated film. Has to be because of the nudity and some of these highly suggestible themes in it. It's just really baffling and really strange, and we're meant to follow this complete loser douchebag character exploit essentially a woman for most of the film. And yeah, granted, she's in there doing, you know, very topless scenes and that kind of stuff, but it's just tasteless. It's a tasteless film. You know, I thought Black Magic was sleazy and bloody, you know, just icky a little bit, but this just takes it to a whole nother fucking level. I wouldn't even say this is exploitation. This is just straight up, we need to appeal to the gamblers, to lowbrow comedy, the lowest comedy. We need an actor who's going to really put himself through that and pretend to be funny. And we need women that are willing to get naked and to do stuff for long periods of time. And we need slightly suggestible supernatural stuff, which is sort of well presented and someone who's done it previously. And yeah, we just need scenes to happen. We need padding, we need comedy, and it doesn't matter where it goes, but it needs to end in the gambling sequence hall again, and we'll have some slight confrontation, but not really. And it's just really, really strange. And my mind just completely imploded in terms of how has a film like this been put together and made. And I've seen some really strange comedies from Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest doing an hour and 40 odd minutes for, I think about each. I think the second one's longer, about an hour and 45 minutes a piece, pitching to the lowest common denominator, even from the director himself, pulling in breadcrumbs for both of these two movies. And I'll put some screenshots in front of you and some clips to kind of highlight that. Is anyone actually looking forward to watching these on this set? The second film and last on this disc is Hex After Hex, which is released in 1982. And it picks up directly where the first one left off in terms of the ghost wife basically abandoning this douchebag loser character, but leaving behind the air hostess or the hooker character. I'm not too sure, couldn't quite follow it. And she's madly in love with the character for some reason. And he makes a breaking the fourth wall joke, saying he's got all the money, all the girls, and he winks, and he's learned nothing, he's achieved nothing, he's had no arc. And yeah, he pimped his own wife out. I'm just really baffled by that character and the outcome of that character by the end. And yeah, despite any kind of interesting ideas, and to kind of go back on that very briefly, for every time the film in the original, the first one, tries to get interesting, every time it gets slightly more interesting, it immediately goes back to being fucking shit and gets worse and gets worse and gets worse. And basically the father character in the same complex goes to this new neighbor character which has muscles. He's named Muscles in the film, and the ghost girl basically has divorced the other character and wants to marry this character instead. He says, no, forget it, I'm not interested, I don't want your jewels, I don't want your offer, I have no interest in this, you know, curse, essentially. And she breaks out of her kind of tablet thing, you know, his kind of containment, and possesses and takes over a body which is named Rosie, which has been in a car accident caused by her. So she's a murderer, which is weird. And you get some cool visual effects and some cool stuff. I'll grant this one has some cooler, more leading into his usual style of this director, which I do like on this director. So I'll give it a little bit more props, just some of the more cooler visual stuff, and maybe had a little bit more wine to work with. It represents as a kind of like a deaf kind of, you know, girl, and enters the body and basically uses this, again, reanimated corpse, I guess, you know, because it's not the same person, the other person's dead, and named herself Rosie, and basically has fallen in love with this Muscles character, which she knows nothing about. And that's the relationship and the back and forth for most of the film. And, you know, she's a character which obviously is infatuated with him for the sake of things, I guess, because she's hollow and she's very lustful, and she's willing to do anything for him. And then a situation happens within a apartment complex where the building is going to be turned into a park, and then you've got rich businessmen doing evil deeds, I guess. And, you know, stress breaks out because this character is a failing stuntman for Shaw Brothers, again, another internal joke, which is hilarious. And, you know, basically he wants to stand up, he wants to put a petition, a kind of appeal for the people in the apartment, and he wants to, you know, save it, essentially save his home, save the people. And obviously things get in the way. Rosie intervenes in this almost fucking an eternity later, and infiltrates the kind of like the business kind of world, and she basically becomes like a secretary and leads this kind of shady businessman into a series of kind of false kind of situations, including more gambling. If you like gambling, you can get some more here, gold, and then basically leading into bankruptcy, and leading to a more sort of positive ending, which leads into another death later. Again, really bizarre. It has a lot more on the nose kind of pop culture references. Being the 80s, this is a very blatant rip-off shocking rip-off of Star Wars, to the point where using the Yoda mask and using the Darth Vader costume with some slight alterations. You're not fooling anyone. Disney will be in talks. Using the themes, using lightsabers. What for? We don't know. Did they go and see Star Wars? Did the initial character see Star Wars before she got killed? No. Is there any kind of main reason for it to be that way? No, because it's popular. And again, we have gambling, we have pop cultural references, blatant rip-offs to have a sort of a funny sequence, which is shown here, pretty awful. And we have Rosie just kind of laughing on the side with her kind of lollipop, and she's really enjoying herself, and leads into a series of back and forth shenanigans, padding, boring characters, boring main villain, again, spending way too much time in the fucking business office, leading into some questionable sequences later on in terms of a potential secondary kind of kidnapping and potentially rape sequence. You know, one of the things I would have thought would have happened in the sequel is that maybe she would have got some resolution. Maybe she would have got peace with her previous circumstances, being the fact that she was killed while entering Hong Kong, being the fact that she was raped and killed and money was taken. I would have thought maybe that would have been something interesting to explore. Maybe. I don't think this film explored that. It didn't seem like it did. It ends in a pretty weird way, and it ends in a death which is not funny. Yeah, terrible. And I'm definitely being all over the place in terms of these reviews, and I'm really struggling to say anything kind of positive or anything of value, because both of these films offer nothing in terms of value for me, at least me personally. These are the lowest of the lowest in terms of the Shaw Brothers library. I think personally, there's a reason why these never had HD releases. There's a reason why it's on the box set, included with other movies, not individual releases. I just feel sorry for the director. You know, the acting in here is pretty terrible. While it does have some good visual effects at times and some good ideas, like there is a good idea here, but I'm pretty sure it's been done at some other point with another Shaw Brothers films. I think the Mr. Vampire movies cover them, you know, Encounters of a Spooky Kind. There's other movies that dive into these kind of ideas much better. You can do comedy, you can do supernatural stuff. There are plenty of movies in this space. Stephen Chow has done plenty of them in terms of the fantastic, and I'll bring this up here, Royal Tramp, which is brilliant, really fun movies, bombastic, just over the top silly, and Forbidden City Cop, which is some of the best of his material. So again, proving that you can do it. That's been my thoughts and impressions on Hex versus Witchcraft, Hex After Hex. What are your thoughts and impressions on both these films? Have you seen them previously to this release? You know, are you excited to watch these two films that have been highly on your list? What do you think of these types of comedies and these types of films? I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions. Please comment down below. So meantime, guys, down for the reviews. Signing out.